You have the May 4th, 2021 Commission meeting minutes approval. You've got number 2, check registers for April 28th through May 4th, 2021. You have consideration and approval of contract between the Utah Department of Health and San Juan County for the 2019 through 2023 EPIC EPICC San Juan Health Department Amendment number 6. Then you've got consideration and approval of the presentation and update of the San Juan Counseling Area Plan. Let's see, that should be, we might not be tracking on the right agenda. Let me just make sure that. And then the 2021 illegal dumping notice. So under the business action items, you've got consideration and approval of a resolution directing that Bill Cooper be hired to assess the 2020 census data for San Juan County, and if needed, draw new election district maps for the county commission and the school board based on that data. Item 7 under business action, you got consideration and approval of the Monticello Library and Sorensen Legacy Foundation grant presented by Michaela Ramsey, our assistant library director and the Monticello branch librarian. Consideration and approval of the contract between the Utah Department of Health and San Juan County for 2022 through 2025 general grant, child health evaluation and care. The acronym for that is CHEC. This one will be presented by Mike McNeely, interim health officer. On item 9, you've got consideration and approval of amendment number 3 to the independent contractor agreement between San Juan County, Utah, and Jerry Mcneely. I'll present that. On our public hearing items today, you've got consideration and approval of public safety remodel and expansion application, scope and work, a scope of work and funding requests to the Permanent Community Impact Fund Board grant and loan program for $17,984. Let's see, $984,704. And then item 11, also under the public hearing, is you've got consideration and approval of the application scope of work and funding request to the Permanent Community Impact Fund Board for $38,700 grant for the Spanish Valley Flood Management Study. I'll present that one as well. Other than that, Commissioners, there is one change that I'd like and suggest to be made. It should have been made, but it didn't catch up on our agenda system, is to pull item number 4, that consideration and approval of presentation and update of the San Juan Counseling FY 2020 area plan, and move that down to our business or action. Should, let's see, it is actually, and I skipped it, sorry. As I look through here, my glasses are bad or something. I skipped that recognitions, presentation, and informational item section, so never mind that. Keep everything as is. It looks like we're fine. She's just coming in. I wanted to make sure that Tammy gave her presentation last year. It was a good presentation. I didn't want to miss that again. Didn't want you to miss it. It's something that she's required to also do, so I couldn't really have that on a consent agenda item, and so, but it looks like it's in the right place. I just missed the recognition, presentation, and informational items. So there, Commissioners, is your agenda for today. I'll nip and tuck. Sorry about the confusion.
Motion to accept the agenda as read into the record. Okay.
Second.
Mr. McDonald, did you recommend that we minus the number 4?
No, number 4 is fine where it's at.
Okay. Any discussion or add-ons, deletion? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 3 in favor, 0 opposed. Motion carries.
Okay, on your agenda, the next item after this is public comments. Let's see, we do have members in the audience. We do also have members online that are participating on here as well. Let me get into it where I can actually see people. So, just as a reminder, public comments will be taken at this time 3 minutes a piece. If you are wishing to make a comment, please keep within that 3 minutes and make sure the comments are kind, thoughtful. If somebody makes a comment that is similar in nature, it doesn't have to necessarily be repeated. And then with your public comments, if I see you, hopefully I can see if you're online. If there's any members in the audience that would like to make a public comment, I've seen a lot. And so we do have some people that are online that would like to make a public comment. I have not seen any hands raised on the chat box, but I do have some waving at me. So I've got Monet Clark. Go ahead. Just state where you reside within the county and your name, and take it away. We'll time you. You should be able to unmute yourself.
Okay. My name is Monette Clark, and I live in Spanish Valley. And I would just like to address item number 9 on your agenda, which is renewal of the contract between San Juan County and Jerry Mcneely. And I would just like to ask the commission to consider and think about this before you might renew his contract. Mr. Mcneely has been doing this for 12 years, and it might be time for the county to think about a reassessment of the contribution of having this kind of a contract with, and also take a look at the performance of the person who's contracted, and especially in terms of his involvement and participation with the Housing Authority of Southeast Utah, the board. I believe Mr. Mcneely hasn't been to a board meeting for about a year. And also, Mr. Mcneely doesn't use email, so it seems rather hard for him to stay in touch with people professionally in terms of his duties if he doesn't even use email. So I would like to ask the commission to maybe put out a request for proposals or try to get some bids from other people if you want to keep this kind of a arrangement with having someone designated to interface with Spanish Valley. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Let's see, I also have a hand raised from Marlene. Marlene, appreciate it.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Okay. I just want to follow up Manette's. I agree. I'm old. And if I can use an iPad and participate in these meetings, I think anyone else can. And not to badmouth anyone, but this is where we are. We have to be able to use computers to communicate with people. And there's probably a lot of qualified people that could do this job, but lived in Spanish Valley that could really keep an eye on things. So I just echo what Minette has said. And thank you all for working so hard. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else wishing to make a public comment? Okay, if there are, go ahead and unmute yourself on here. Not seeing or hearing anyone else on there. Commissioner, it looks like that's your public comments.
I have one. If
Oh.
that's all right.
Do you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Would you like me to go here or stand up there?
Either one. You can totally sit right where you are. Just speak into your mic, state your name, and where you live in the county.
Okay, so this is John David Nielsen. Have a public comment on with regards to item number 6 on the agenda, and I'm giving this as a just not from my capacity as a clerk, but as a citizen, just a concern about the hiring of Mr. Bill Cooper to redistrict the county. Back in 2015, he represented the Navajo Nation as a consultant in their lawsuit against the county, which covered the redistricting law, the lawsuit recovering redistricting. I guess the concern that I have is that as a representative of an entity which previously sued the county, there may be some bias in how he decides to redraw maps that will likely be presented to the commission, covering school board and commission district boundary changes using the 2020 census data. In 2016, Judge Shelby used maps created by the county's consultant to run the 2016 presidential election, and after that, he used an independent consultant to draw what's now our current school board and commission districts. To my knowledge, this consultant has no ties to either the county or the Navajo Nation. In a legal review, a legal opinion, which I think is on the agenda, the county attorney suggested that we follow the county's policies and procedures to work towards hiring an independent consultant to do the work. I think this would be wise, and it would also reduce any possible bias that may come about, and it would give transparency to the process. He also, in his legal opinion, stated that it might be wise to create a ordinance forming a redistricting commission, which would create an added layer of protection against any legal challenges. And I would just support his opinion in that process, and would just hope that the commission could go through the process, creating transparency to hire somebody who would look at the data and redraw maps that without any sort of bias or perceived bias. Thank you.
Thanks, John David. Okay, one more check real fast, see if there's anybody else that's raised their hand that hasn't already spoken. Okay. All right, commissioners, that's it for public comments for today.
Okay.
So,
Well, go ahead and proceed.
okay, continuing forward, we are now at our consent agenda items. On your consent agenda, you have the minutes from May 4th, 2021 commission meeting. You've got the check register from April 28th, 2021 to May 4th, 2021. You've got consideration and approval of a contract between the Utah Department of Health and San Juan County for the 2019-2023 EPICC San Juan Health Department Amendment number 6. This amendment here, it doesn't increase the amount. What it does is more structural modifications within the language in the text, where it extends the contract out to June 29th, 2020. It changes the funding section on there to recognize that on that 1815 grant item in there, that is also modified for the date Overall, kind of this contract represents and has represented for several years for the county is our efforts for healthy living through environmental policy and improved clinical care. That's what the acronym is, EPICC. On here, we're able to assist with the funding, provide assistance programs for chronic disease prevention and control. There's also a portion of this that aids in diabetes and hypertension, education and awareness on the prevention and management of diabetes and heart disease and stroke. It's kind of financed as part of the prevention and public health. There's also an innovative state and local public health strategy to prevent and manage diabetes and heart disease and stroke throughout the county. So that's what this contract represents, but it's mainly a structural change on there. That, commissioners, are the 3 items on your consent agenda for your approval.
Motion made by Mr. Maryboy.
Is that a motion to approve the 3 items
Consent.
on the consent agenda?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll second that.
Okay. Any further comments or discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye also. 3 ayes opposed, nay. 3 in favor, 0 opposed, motion passed.
Okay, under your recognitions, presentations, and informational items, your first agenda item, we're at number 4, if anybody's following along, and I'll catch you up online here, is consideration and approval of the presentation and update on the San Juan Counseling Fiscal Year 22 Area Plan. This will be Tammy. Tammy, come on up. Sorry it's taken us so long to get to you. I appreciate your patience, you guys.
You're good, you're good. I'm just happy to be here. I'm happy to see your guys' faces in person. It's great. I just need to present the area plan to you guys. I did make some copies if you want one, but it is a part of the packet too. Every year, San Juan Counseling, we have to do an area plan that kind of goes over what we're going to do in the next fiscal year. Most of our area plan, it stays pretty much the same from year to year. If you look, there's different colors on the area plan of where we've written it in blue. That kind of highlights the changes in our area plan. One of the biggest changes that we've made over this last year is we have incorporated a mobile crisis outreach team. We've received some additional funding from the state to provide this team, and so that is now reflected in our area plan. So I don't know, it's a pretty big, fun, and exciting document. I don't know if you guys have any questions or if you have any general questions for me.
No question?
I do.
Mr. Adams?
Tammy, I'm just wondering, who else receives information on your area plan? Does the city councils receive that information? There seems to be some feeling in some parts of the county that maybe there are not any mental health services being provided. And I don't know, Mac, I think there was one request went to the lieutenant governor indicating there wasn't mental health services being provided. I just wonder if there's a communication gap going on or something.
I think there is a big communication gap. I actually talked to the city manager yesterday about it, and he thinks part of the communication gap also is kind of a little bit of telephone game of what was actually said to the lieutenant governor's office. So I've actually reached out to the city, and we're going to be presenting to the council in the next month or so. But the area plan is a public document. It's loaded up into the Division of Substance Abuse and Mental Health's website. Anybody can go in and look at everybody's area plan throughout the whole state. So it is a public document.
We just received information back from the Lieutenant Governor's office that there was a problem of some kind.
Yeah, and it when it got back to me, it was pretty concerning. So I reached out to some people, and like I said, I think the information I'm getting back is it's a little bit of a telephone game. That's not what was said to the
Portrayed, yeah.
Lieutenant Governor's office, and,
Well, we
and
think
so
you
we're
do-
working on that.
We think you do a great job.
Well, thank
So
you.
if somebody doesn't understand what you're, or doesn't think you're doing a great job, they just don't understand, in my opinion.
You know, and I think we're doing a good job too, but I think there's some areas that we can improve, and I think probably community outreach and community education is absolutely one of those areas. So it's kind of a good reminder too.
Okay, good. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
If I may, Commissioners, I have a couple questions.
Go ahead,
Tammy?
sir.
Tammy?
You read through it, didn't you? Good job.
Yes. I know. So, and for me, it's all a part of it was looking at what is going to be required for the county on county match as well on here. And I noticed on here that the county contribution amount has gone down for one side of the house. And so you have two plans on here, one for substance abuse, the other one for the mental health side of it. And I think it's the mental health that's gone down. Gotta find and catch up with my notes. So the mental health area plan budget has gone down on here significantly compared to last year's.
Mhm.
So you're at 88,000 last year on kind of the county match, proposed county match in your 2021 plan, and then for 2022, you bring it from 88,000 down to 58,000. So super appreciate that. But I also noticed there was in your forecasting of services that you're going to provide, you're actually going to be providing more services than you did last year. So that's a good thing, and it kind of helps go to some of the comments that we're hearing out there on the street is, you know, San Juan County substance abuse and mental health, we're not there. Well, now we're going to be there more. So there. But with that, you're also receiving state funds on there. Were the state funds available before, or are these new grants that are available for that so that the county's required Medicare match is less than what it typically is? Is it because the state is now pitching in, and where were they all along?
Yeah. So what it really comes down to is that new MCOT money. The MCOT money is coming through as general funds, so we can use that for Medicaid match. And so any additional money that I would come to the county before to make my Medicaid match, I don't need to now. I can use that MCOT funding for it. So that's why the county portion has gone down, and that's why overall our budget has gone up.
Yes, yeah, and that's what I noticed that as well. You went, so last year you were at 1.5. This next year you're anticipating 2.2, so a significant increase, but yet lower cost for the county. Do you think that will be continuation? Can we expect that in the future, the state pitching in for that?
I hope so.
Me too. Yes, me too.
I really hope so. I think we're always fighting for the state to continue to put more in and the counties to kind of keep it even, because in a lot of counties it's pretty unbalanced.
Yeah.
And so just know I think Bruce is aware, but we have a subgroup of UAC called UBIC, to where we work pretty closely with UAC, and because we're all counties.
Champion the legislation.
Yeah.
And the bills.
Yeah, so we're always hoping to keep counties pretty even.
Okay. Then I also noticed and applaud the efforts also with the opioid, just awareness and assistance to people on there. How last year kind of we were bordering not really directing any funds to that, to where we actually kind of this next year put in for close to 100,000. I think it was what it was on there. So, or 99. I can't find it just off of my notes, but it was, to me, I I like the fact that, and you see this throughout the state, is this opioid problem. Whereas in 2021, financially there was really no effort that was demonstrated, but this next year you have that on your plan, is to help focus on some of those efforts. I know at the state level, we're also participating, or most counties are participating in that lawsuit against Big Pharmacy to
Has that
help.
lawsuit ever been settled?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Alex
That
is
was
online.
the
Maybe Alex
state
will know.
Suing the drug company.
It was.
Yeah, and I haven't heard much about it, so.
Me neither.
They're
I'm
not
Can't really
offering you
speak
any
to
money
it.
from the settlement.
no, but I thought it was pretty neat that 2021 there was little budget and anticipation for it, but now for this next year, it's kind of a significant increase, which is super appreciative, and especially being on some of the committees and seeing some of the drug issues that we have here in the county can stem from that. Former opioid use is kind of that catalyst into it. And at UAC, we heard a great presentation from an MMA boxer who kind of began his career in drugs off of opioid use, and so very real for a lot of our residents, I imagine.
Yep.
And so,
Very true.
other than that, that was all the questions I have. I appreciate that. I just wanted to acknowledge that reduction in county participation, which I appreciated.
Thank you. And actually, in fiscal year 21 that we're currently in, I did ask for additional match, not realizing that the MCOT money is there. So for this fiscal year, I won't be asking for that additional amount that I had originally budgeted.
Okay, perfect.
So
Sweet.
tuck that away somewhere.
Christmas.
Yeah.
How does your agency work with the Utah Navajo Health System? Is there any communication, or is there any monies being grant monies or some?
There is a lot of communication. We're on several coalitions together, and we, along with UNHS, we've started the Zero Suicide Coalition, to where we focus on suicide prevention and the efforts that we can do in all the communities. We have a good working relationship with their behavioral health. We talk constantly. They refer people to us. We refer people to them. We work together on issues to kind of get it going. As far as grant funding, there hasn't been a whole lot of that passing back and forth. We have worked together, like I said, on the coalition. If they have a grant for suicide prevention, they last year or two ago they went out and had this grant to buy a bunch of safes for suicide prevention. And they've been sharing them with all the agencies in the community. We have some safes at our building that we can give out in need, and other people do too. So we have a really good working relationship with them.
The other one is in terms of having to refer patients, clients, I guess would be. What's the follow-up number? How many success stories do you have?
In referring them to UNHS or
Referring patients or clients to other agencies. Do you guys do follow-ups in terms of inquiring about your client or the feedback from the referred agency?
So if we refer clients, a lot of the referrals that we do, especially to out of the county, are for inpatient hospitalizations or for substance use disorder treatment facilities. And we follow all of those very closely. We work on getting them back into the community after they come back, and keeping them into services and getting them healthy. So those types of referrals we do follow through on.
Looking at the whole community, when referral is made to you, your agency, who do you work with on the local community level? Do you work with immediate family? Do do you work with community? Because I haven't seen anything regarding that type, what your program is, what you're talking about at Navajo Mountain.
Yeah,
Maybe that's off limit to you.
well, unfortunately, because of COVID, most of the reservation has been off limit to us for the last year. We, with COVID, we've been doing a lot of telemedicine and a lot of telephone calls to keep in contact with people, and we'll continue to do that and keep reaching out as much as we can. But as far as follow-up goes, especially with family members and individuals, that's really on a case-by-case basis. And it's basically what the individual needs as part of their treatment plan. So it's just a wide variety of who we would work with.
Yeah. What I was trying to listen to is that in order to reduce recidivism, you have to involve immediate family, extended family, community.
Mm-hmm.
That is the key to holistic healing.
I agree.
And nobody practices that. I used to work with the behavioral health, and I assume that mental health does the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, in order to truly, I guess, would be to do everything down the line. Even those clients or patients that go to treatment centers, they are referred. On the reservation, on the Navajo Nation, it's impossible. Unless you have $1 million in your pocket. These referrals are made to down south in Arizona, Long Beach, California, Albuquerque. They spend 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. But there's no immediate family involved because of the distance and the economic situation that the families have. So hardly truly a holistic healing.
Yeah.
Maybe you can devise something.
Yeah, we definitely will keep working on that and looking into better ways to get the whole holistic approach.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. The other thing is you probably just zero in on the Western treatment modalities. There is another side to it. Native American treatment modalities, which the Navajo patient would be in tune with. So,
Yeah, and we've been looking into ways to incorporate that more. We unfortunately, because of our funding source, the Medicaid funding source, we have to use kind of the evidence-based practices and what they allow as far as services that are allowable and the practitioners that can provide them the certain licenses. And so we have been looking into that, and we will continue to keep looking into that.
yeah, tell them that it's dictatorial type of a system.
Yeah.
Top to bottom. We give you the money, you do this, jump 10 times in the morning. See, that type of, instead of the best method that you know how to implement that. So that becomes unsuccessful on some, I would say, on the Navajo Nation.
Okay, we'll keep looking into it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Receiving center. So at UAC, they presented, Brandon Hatch from Davis County presented on the receiving centers. I know Commissioner Gray Eyes, you had mentioned or had some comments for them when they were discussing that.
Public
It seems like
safety.
they're reaching out into these communities and putting more of
Right.
those receiving centers in. Is there any anticipation in the future of San Juan County having that, or do you see a need really for that? I know it's kind of a stopgap measure between
Mm-hmm.
mental health, the hospital, and kind of the jail or the sheriff system.
I actually do see that. I mean, if you build it, they will come. I really kind of believe that. I think there is a need there. Funding it, staffing it could be a real issue. I'm watching really closely what Northeastern is going to do, because they're starting a little. They're more rural. They're over in Vernal and Roosevelt, and they're going to be starting kind of a pilot type program to see how you can do this, because receiving centers, it's really an urban model. You have to have the numbers in order to make it happen. So I'm really going to be watching, and I work closely with Northeastern to see how they manage it and what they're doing, and see if there's something along those lines that we could follow.
Okay.
Because I think it's a great idea. I think it really helps your emergency rooms. It helps your jails.
Yes,
It really
exactly.
does.
Yeah.
And if we can divert some of the hospitalizations, when we have to hospitalize individuals, it's a real hardship. There's no hospitals here or close that these people can go to, so they're going up to the Wasatch Front. So if we can reroute some of these things, it would be a real big win.
Okay.
So I mean, that's one that's always on my radar, and we'll keep watching it, because it's a pretty big deal. It's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I'm close enough. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Nada.
Okay.
Thank you, Tammy. I
Okay.
appreciate that. Do you need a formal approval
I
on here and a signature, right?
I do. I need a signature to upload this with my plan, so that the state will then allow it.
I'll make a motion to approve the updated San Juan Counseling Fiscal Year 22 Area Plan.
Motion. Second, Commissioner Merriwood. If there's no further question, all those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you, guys. Thank
Opposed?
you for your
Zero.
support.
Thank you. Motion passed. 3 in favor, 0 opposed. Next,
Okay, the next on your agenda is the 2021 illegal dumping notice discussion or just presentation. This is Randy.
Hello again. A little backstory on this. My phone at the landfill has been quite active over the last 6 months with concerned citizens of the communities calling to express their displeasure within the county in the amount of illegal dumping that they see is taking place on our back roads. Specifically, I've had 3 calls from the LaSalle area. I've had 1 call from Hovenweep. I've had 1 call from Hatch Trading Post area. I've heard several comments, although I've not gotten any calls from the Blanding area, the old dump site in Blanding, the rifle range in Blanding. I haven't heard too much in the Monticello area, but I imagine they have their issues too. So I wanted to do something to kind of reach out to these people and let them know that I've heard them. And I'd like to do something to try to at least educate the public a little bit that they have other options. Dumping your trash in a ditch in a back road really is a horrible option. So I asked Mac, can we go ahead and just put an ad in the paper, a letter to the editor, or an ad? And Mac, I don't remember your exact answer, but I think we have a resolution in place, do we not, that states before public employee can make any statement on behalf of the county. We have to first bring it to the commission. Do we have to go in the form of a resolution?
No, no, it's just the commission is the one that
Okay,
has
so,
the opinion, basically.
so we're good doing a presentation. Mac asked me to throw something together. So you should all have a copy of it. If you'd like me to read through it real quick, I'll be happy to, unless everybody's read it and you're okay with the verbiage.
I just have a question about enforcement. You got in there that any illegal dumping could earn you a ticket for $500. Who's the enforcement people of that, and have they agreed to do that enforcement?
Yeah, so my conversation on that aspect of this started several years ago when Sheriff Torgerson was actually the chief of police with Blanding City, and he did the legwork on that. He said Blanding City has no ordinance and nothing on the books where they could find. As far as he knew at that point, San Juan County had nothing on the books. So the only thing he could find was a state of Utah law, and it's basically the same law when you're driving down the highway. You see a sign on the side of the highway that says littering fines up to $500. But what it really boils down to is your local judge within your community. The sheriff's department, the chief, or the city police would do the ticketing, and then they would turn that over to the court systems. And historically, the judge will then determine what the fine is, and usually they incorporate some sort of community service with that. Now, recently, I've had conversations with Sheriff Torgerson about these phone calls that I've gotten, and I know he, of his own volition, has investigated 2 separate illegal dumping situations in the Blanding area and made contact with the violators. Now, I don't know the outcome of that, if it went through the court system or what the deal is, but Sheriff Torgerson has expressed to me his desire for his people to step up their efforts in our back communities as well. So does that kind of answer that? That's where the ticketing would come from, and the enforcement would come through the judicial system.
Well, if the sheriff's department is willing to be the ticket giver, I don't know. We don't have a police department in Monticello, but the only other one would be City of Blanding, and if they're on board with that, then I guess
I think, and we can invite him in to talk to us too. He's offered up, and he's not here to speak for himself, but he's offered up some other potential weapons against this, in that they have some trail cams and stuff like that, where we have these known problem areas. And yeah, he's on board. He wants to see this problem go away in San Juan County. So did that?
I think, Jason, you're on our meeting today. Do you have anything to say?
Can you guys hear me? Yes. So yeah, I've talked to Randy about these issues, and it's something that I'm on board to enforce, illegal dumping. I actually want to get the inmates, get a work crew to start cleaning up some of these problem areas. And that's something I've been talking to Lieutenant Young about, is getting an inmate work crew out there. If we could get I don't know if we can get it to where we don't have to pay the dump fee, if the inmates go clean it up. But we want to enforce it, and we want to get it cleaned up, and then really put trail cameras up and try to catch people that are littering again. There are a few real problem areas that, we need to get cleaned up. And I'm willing to use the inmates to do it.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
So you have a copy in front of you. I guess, Mac, where do we go from here? Do I just need to get permission that this verbiage is okay, and we can go with either a letter to the editor or an ad in the paper? The landfill will pay the fees for all that, and I'd like to go multiple weeks, not just a one-time deal.
Yeah, if you guys are okay with this, then we'll go ahead and proceed with the notice.
Let me make a comment. Ticket up to $500. If the court or the officer or the judge could just focus on $500, not working for community works. That doesn't generate any money. Direct. I would recommend that they delete that community work section out and then increase maybe the money.
Yeah, well, my hope is that the word would get out that if somebody gets one $500 ticket, the word's gonna get out and this is gonna come to a stop. Nobody's gonna wanna pay $500 when they can go to the landfill, split the load with your neighbor, and it's $5 a piece. So, yeah,
Well,
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
My hope is that there would be a very few people that would be the example, and the word would get out, and this would come to a stop.
Yeah. They'll say, if they give me the option to work on a community project without pay, I'll go do it. I'll pay the $500.
And I don't know what influence we have over the judicial system and how they split
Alex, did you have a comment? You had your
Judiciary
hand raised.
Commission.
Yeah, just to address Commissioner Gray Eyes' concern, the statute for the littering that this would fall under doesn't make it an either or proposition. You can find them and make them do the community service. You don't have to pick between them. You can make them do both.
That's the reason why I'm saying just increase the amount of dollars to pay. Instead of $500, make it $1,000.
Well, because of the nature of the charge that it is, we can ask for up to 1,000. The bail schedule puts it closer to 500. So, but we can ask for more.
All right, so the last thing that I would say, as I started out saying, my phone rings, I get these phone calls, I get concerned people. Some of the people are asking us to change our policies at our Dropbox locations, particularly in LaSalle. They say there's a building boom going on in LaSalle because the housing in Moab is so expensive. And one gentleman called me and said, you know, we got this house building going on. We've got no place to take our construction materials from these building projects. Right now, we don't accept construction materials at the Dropbox locations.
Yeah.
And he's asking us to change our policy to allow that. And I don't set the rules. You gentlemen set the rules, and I enforce the rules. There are some things we have to be careful of there. We don't have scales at these locations. We can't, short of estimating the weight of what somebody's throwing away, we could get into a really difficult situation where these dumpsters, we can't get them picked up off the ground. The trucks won't pick them up, or we'll be overweight when we cross the scales and subject to tickets and fines. So
Yeah.
they may, my recommendation to them when I hear that is for them to contact you and share their concerns with you, and maybe not just a concern, but a possible solution as well. So if your phone's ringing over this, it's because I'm encouraging people to reach out or to show up at a commission meeting and share their concerns. But at this point, there's not really a lot we can do with that. So if we're good with the,
Just tell him to call Willie. He's willing to deal with this.
Yeah.
Have all the calls come into Willie.
You know my number?
okay, so is this done by vote or just?
Is there,
Okay, all right.
is-
Anything else for me? Any questions, Kenneth?
Get it?
actually, I was going to ask, are we taking an action on this? Because when you think about this, enough is enough, and it's getting really bad out there. And it also, I think, will demonstrate a good community in the surrounding area if they notice that the county is doing this. I would ask that the sheriff and the administrator to look into and see what would be the maximum amount that can be charged to an individual that was to be illegally dumping. And wherever you go, I do a lot of hunting and wood gathering, and it's like that everywhere. People are dumping their furnitures and refrigerators and stuff like that, and it's really. I always thought that the us res was pretty bad, but it's the same out here. So I think I would ask the administrator to, and also maybe you and the sheriff department to look for the maximum fine that you can find, and
$1,000.
what else we can do. And I think that's the only way, because if we do $500 and it's just 1,000 and laugh it away, that's a tap on the hand. To me, I think we need to do something about this. And if this is going to be an action, maybe we need to put it down to an action item and take an action on it. As a matter of fact, would like to make a motion to ask this item to be put on the action item, if I could.
Yeah, we can take an action on this. So a lot of it was, and we'd appreciate a motion to approve.
Okay, with that, I make a motion with the directive that I've given.
I'll second it, but I think Alex told us the maximum amount under state law was $1,000.
Mm-hmm.
So we can certainly
Unless
change
you,
that to 1,000 on there.
Introduce the legislation to change it, state level.
For the most part, wanted
If-
to be communicated so that as we announce it to the public, if you hear any comments or public can be aware of it, then we'll start to advertise this in the paper so that we can start the enforcement side of it.
And-
Go on our website and throw something on Facebook too. So education, communications, the key to this, and we'll see where this goes. We talked earlier about this community cleanup effort, and so we'll try to really educate people that there is a better way, and it's really not that expensive. So.
Back to the Old Testament. There's something in the shoe cut the head off.
The amount of the fine is up to the judge.
And some articles I read said they can split it.
Just to provide some information for informational purposes, it is an enhanceable offense, and we can put them in jail for up to 90 days for repeat offenders.
Throw that into my motion as well. This is our
Is that-
county.
Is that a motion?
Yes, I said throw that in in my motion.
Willie, what's the motion exactly? I'm not sure I
I'm
understand.
not, that's the reason why I said, maybe repeat your motion, clarify.
Mr. McDonald, again, I made a motion up to the maximum amount of what the fine would be. And attorney jumped in and just barely recognized that even a 90 days can be thrown at the guy. Let's adopt that into my motion. And we enforce this. And I directed our administrator, the gentleman, and also Mr. Torgerson to look into what needs to happen to start enforcing this. That's my motion. Want me to do it in Navajo too?
Okay. I'll second it if it's legal.
And we can run this by the attorney.
Before Mr. Adams said that, I said this is our county, and we're the commissioners.
Okay. There's a motion second to increase the fine.
Yeah,
Is that-
just to approve the
purpose?
letter, the notice, and then we'll
There's
make
a-
those adjustments on there.
That is, still trying to understand. There's flexibility, he said, to increase the fine from $500 to $1,000. On top of that, to add, maybe throw that individual into confinement for
90 days.
90 days, just like 90 days treatment center.
No littering.
And hopefully something comes out. But the other side of it, the damage he's done. And the cost will be there for cleanup. So, I don't know. You look at all this, so that seems to be the motion.
No,
Second,
this is elevated to the level of illegally shooting a deer now.
Mm-hmm.
well,
If we can keep their truck.
somebody shot themselves illegally,
Oh, man.
accidentally. And so, with that motion in place, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye too. 3 ayes, 0 opposed.
Okay,
On the way home, Randy, don't shoot a deer or throw a napkin out the window.
Don't run over a turkey.
This morning I stopped at the
Thank you, Randy. Appreciate
gas
that.
station and landing, and I got back into the car. I was driving out there. Where was it? Somewhere.
Davis County?
I was driving off. Oh, down in Mexican water. I drove off and looked back into my rear view mirror. This guy came out, and just where I was parked, he picked up a trash. And I thought he was going to come after me.
Oh,
I kept watching and watching.
It wasn't
Right.
Mary Boy, was it?
No. But he threw that thing in the trash can, so took off.
Yeah.
It wasn't mine, but I felt guilty.
He probably blamed you.
Yeah. Anyway, going on next.
All right, continuing forward on under our business action items, we're on item number 6 now. You have the first item on here is consideration and approval of a resolution directing that Bill Cooper be hired to assess the 2020 census data for San Juan County, and if needed, draw new election district maps for the county commission and the school board based on that data. We've got in your packet kind of the historical information. It looks like the resume and background for Mr. Cooper, what he's done with when the Navajo Nation and San Juan County were in the lawsuit, his work efforts on behalf of the Navajo Nation, and then the resolution. And also, if you remember back to the public comments, John David mentioned and referenced the letter from Kendall Laws in here, giving us a legal opinion regarding the resolution. That Commissioner Maryboy, I don't know if you wanted to explain or just go briefly over this, or do you want me to? I can, either one.
We don't need to.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you want him to?
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, kind of what this is on the resolution. Here, let me get to it. I'll spin it so everybody else can see the resolution as well. So we've been asked to, or Mr. Cooper has expressed a willingness to assess the 2020 census data for San Juan County and advise that the county commission regarding whether the commission or school board election district maps will need to be redrawn on that data, and if necessary, redraw those maps in conformity with one person, one vote. To me, one person, one vote is a congressional district map, is that kind of how they draw their boundaries, but nevertheless, continuing forward with it, that Mr. Cooper will charge $125 an hour for his work, with estimates that it should only take about 40 hours to complete this project, for an estimated total of 5,000. Sorry, did I? Oh yeah, 125 an hour. I thought I said that. 125. Yeah, it's only 125 an hour, for an estimate total of $5,000 for the project. In here, it recommends that we immediately retain the services of Mr. Cooper, so that the project can be swiftly completed once the 2020 census data is released. As a reminder to the public, the census comes out, is supposed to be anticipated completion in September of this year. And then in here on the therefore be it resolved, county administrator is directed to immediately enter into a contract between Mr. Bill Cooper and San Juan County for Mr. Cooper to assess the 2020 census data for San Juan County, and then advise the county commission regarding whether the commissioner's school board election district maps will need to be redrawn based on that data, and if necessary, redraw those maps in conformity with the one person one vote and traditional districting principles. Mr. Cooper's duties, as stated in the contract, shall also include work on other election and voting procedures as determined to be necessary by the county commission from time to time. And then in 2, as the county attorney is directed to assist the county administrator in developing an appropriate contract between Mr. Bill Cooper and San Juan County consistent with the intent of this resolution. The contract shall be presented to the commission for its review, amendment, and approval before its executed by the parties of the contract. That's kind of the overall summary of the resolution on there that's before you. On here, you do have the legal opinion. I don't know if Michelle's here. We do have Alex. I don't know if they want to provide a summary of kind of their document, or if I can, either one. So it looks like we do have Alex there. If you guys are willing to have Alex go through and give a summary of that. Hold on, let me mute this person. Alex, are you there, or Kendall?
I am sorry. I was just taking a phone call and I missed the last part of that.
Just, I don't know if you wanted to give a summary of the legal opinion on here that Kendall had drafted.
So I think the letter's pretty clear. The main point is the end decision belongs to this commission on the redistricting. There are, looking at some of the practices, especially some of the larger counties that do a lot of that deal with this redistricting far more often than the rural counties have to. Most of them have an ordinance in place that lays out policies and procedures so that they don't have to go through this process every 10 years, kind of recreating the wheel. Our office would highly encourage that San Juan County definitely look at creating an ordinance. Obviously, the commission would be the body to pass that ordinance, but we are happy to draft that, take your input, look for changes, anything that you want, so that every 10 years there's a policy and procedure put in place. But the end decision is yours. The hiring, you can hire an expert. The one thing we would just ask is to make sure you follow the standard purchasing policy of the county in going through that process, and make sure you follow all open meeting and government records requirements through that process, so that we don't create a legal avenue to object to whatever redistricting may or may not happen outside of the actual redistricting question.
Thank you, Alex. Appreciate that. So in here, as you as kind of stated in here, when I looked at the purchasing policy, and with the question, can we hire him directly without having to go through a process? We do have the sole source provisions that would allow you to sole source. But my concern with that is if there's other companies that are out there that can redistrict and perform this service for us, what is the exception? Typically, when you use a sole source, there's an exception that you're looking for. For example, this is, if take for a building example, as you built the building, you would sole source the contractor that built the building to come back in and do a modification because they know and understand the building better than anybody else. So you can sole source that process. But it's usually an exception to the normal rule. If there's only one person within this region or within this area that offers this service, and it's prudent, then you would sole source that position or that purchase for that reason. And so on here, it mentioned in our purchasing policy that a minimum at this amount, $5,000, would require 2 bids, or you push this out to an RFP for a multiple solicitation. And the reason for that is really ethical, to protect, especially you as commissioners, where you have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that everything in our operations is done in an open and transparent means and methods. And so it's keeping it with that in mind that I look at, it'd be really wise and prudent if we were to solicit other people to do this service as well. It doesn't mean that in the end, Mr. Cooper cannot be it, but you've gone through a public process, you've solicited more than one, and you're not excluding anybody else that could come back and say, hey, why didn't you offer me an opportunity, especially if there's a company here in San Juan County can do that. Now, that's hypothetical. I don't know if there's anybody here in San Juan County that can redistrict and draw maps. Mr. Cooper has a lot of experience as you're looking at his resume, but are there others out there? We haven't even explored that opportunity or posed that question out to the public to see if that's viable. And so a lot of it, I'm trying to keep everything in a standard that I also hold our county staff to. I don't want county staff seeing that, hey, the commissioners do something different than the policy that they adopted. It's important that as you'd adopt a policy, all of us adhere to it, and then especially when it comes to disciplinary issues, disciplinary matters, we want to make sure that we're keeping in line with the policies that you create and adopt. If there's things that we need to change within the policy, then we can do so and change the policy to fit whatever those desires are that you have as commissioners to get around it. But a lot of our purchasing policy comes out of state code. Now, as I mentioned, state code in there, and that's kind of where I mentioned you do, as county commissioners by state code, have that responsibility to make sure that you're falling in line. And one of them is if we do contract with Mr. Cooper, you have to have a budgetary line item that's specific for that, and we can get that. We just have to go through and open our budget through a public hearing process, create that line item so that the expenditure and everything can be taken from the appropriate funds to pay for Mr. Cooper's services. I also understand that there's a time frame here. We're worried about him being picked off by somebody else. If you think about it throughout the nation, everybody is going to be redistricting based off of the new census data throughout the nation. And so his services at $5,000 is relatively affordable. I would say super affordable compared to some of the other counties that I see in there. And also just kind of to note on there, as you look at other counties, one of the things that other counties are doing, and we would work on this in the scope of work and the contracting, is a lot of counties has set up a redistricting commission or a committee comprised of multiple members of the community, multiple members of the county, who represent each of the cities and towns. Here we could have somebody that's representing the chapters, within each district, whatever that means is. But I think there has to be a kind of an open and transparent process through this. That's why we would recommend having that committee formed with that at the next step, so that it's open and transparent. One of the things that I wouldn't want to have it be seen as that, our commission is just gerrymandering, that we're fixing the lines ourselves and hiring, somebody to fix those lines ourselves, especially knowing that election years are coming up in advance of this, and this sets those lines for 10 years. And so we need to be super ultra cautious of what that appearance looks like to the public. And so that's kind of where that comes into place. If we get the two bids, kind of go down that road to keep everything open and transparent, go through the formal process that's already created in our policy, keeping within that, and then going forward. I understand, and I heard the comments, of the efforts. The county had some issues in the past, and we've suffered those consequences. But with that, we also learned from it. And I don't think anybody on this stand today or any of our staff is out there to cost the county more money. And so I think with that, we need to make prudent and responsible decisions, knowing that all of our efforts should always be under that realm that we have a fiduciary responsibility to the public, that we're overseeing those funds and we're doing the right thing in avoidance of any lawsuit, any future settlement, but we're doing the best for everyone. You can see, and one of the things that we worry about with that is, there's some legitimate concerns that I've heard over the year and a half being here, from Blanding, and you hear it in some of the public comments is, well, Blanding isn't fairly representative. They don't have a county commissioner that represents them because they're split 3 different ways, whatever the case is. And so we definitely want to make sure that we do this in a transparent manner, that everybody, that those critical people are sitting at the table as we go through this process, so that at no point in time can anybody point the finger and say, hey, county, you did wrong again. You didn't pay attention to the courts. You didn't pay attention to what happened in the past, but you stepped in it again, and here you go. Welcome to your next lawsuit. And so with that, commissioners, that's kind of an overall explanation from me.
Mr. Chair, if I may, please. Before we muddy up the water a little bit more than it is, personally, I've been very adamant about our attorney's position, and this is to be expected to have them take this position. But my position is that I was on the other side before I became back into the office as a commissioner. And we won. And when you have something that works, then you hold on to that. If you've been buying Dodge or Ford for so many years, and all of a sudden you bought a Chevy, you already put too much money into investment, and the thing doesn't work for you, so now you're looking at other ways again. We lost a lot of money. Not only the Navajos, but everybody in San Juan County. That means the all the way from Spanish Valley down to the river, Navajo Mountain, and Anna. And we're okay because we're sitting in the office. But we lost a lot of money. And right now, redistricting is going to be happening all over. And somebody's going to hire this guy. Whoever hired this guy, they're going to be winning cases. The last meeting that we had, Kendall sounded like he doesn't even know the guy. That's very strange. He should be going head to head with him during the court cases. So he knows who he is. If I'm going to have somebody on my side, I rather make sure that he's he's kicking butt before I even point at anybody else. And this is the guy that I think we need to hire. $5,000 is nothing compared to what we lost. And if we stay on the good old boy networking, we're gonna lose again. We're gonna lose a lot of money again. Before anybody retains him, I'm hoping that we be able to hire this guy, and he's not going to be charging us until he starts working on it. And I think that this needs to happen soon. So when that September month comes around, we're not going to worry about it. Everything's going to go through the way this county should be. This county consists of Hispanic, Navajo, Utes, and different nationality. We have to look at it from all different sides. And I believe that this is the ticket and this is the way we should, and I would like it if I can have the support from the commissioners to see if we can retain Mr. Bill Cooper to help us do this. Again, I hate to lose a lot of money. The guy knows what he's doing, and the guy does a good job. That's what I like to say, Mr. Chair.
Adams?
I would suggest, and Mr. Maryboy seems to be insinuating that Mr. Cooper would not start until after the census numbers come out in September. I just would hope that we would state that in the contract, if we're going to hire him, that we really wouldn't be paying him until after the census come out in September. That be part of the motion or the resolution. Thank you.
Mr. Maryboy?
I believe that that is the position of Mr. Cooper, because he's going to be paid until the day he picks up the pen to start doing some paperwork to help us out.
So that's part of your motion.
What does the resolution say? The resolution,
It doesn't give a start date.
yep, it doesn't give us a start date.
So
It's charged at $125 an hour for his work, and estimates that it would take about 40 hours to complete this project. When you look at that, keeping in mind with the fact if we do form a redistricting committee to assist him in those endeavors, that 40 hours will go pretty fast. But we would try to keep him within that scope of work, so that we can keep it at that $5,000. And then just mention, it doesn't state
when his start date would be.
No, it's just the willingness to assess the 2020 census data. We would have to hold off. So typically your tax information doesn't come out until June, and then you would follow that with a commission meeting and a public hearing and an adjustment to your budget, is mid-year adjustments. We could bring this back with that budget adjustment to make sure that we had the $5,000 allocated appropriately in the correct line item. You really wouldn't be able to contract with them prior to having that budget adjustment. That's a legal ramification that's set by state code. You can't contract with somebody without having it in your budget to do so, and so we would need to make sure that budget adjustment is done first and then contract with Mr. Cooper after that. I don't know if he's, I don't know, I don't have his contact information, so I don't know. Commissioner Maryboy, if you can reach out to him, say, you know, we do want to contract with you and work with him. He hasn't seen our contract yet, our standard contract, nor our scope of work. And so it's something that we would have to work and engage with him anyways, to make sure he was okay with the terms of the contract, which is kind of that next step that you posed in number 2, that me and our county attorneys would work on that contract to do so. So there's still a couple steps before we can actually get him in here legally.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Adams.
I just noticed that in the now therefore be it resolved, it says county administrator is directed to immediately enter into a contract. All I'm asking is that the contract have a start date in it. I don't care when you enter in the contract with him, you can enter into it today, but probably wouldn't necessarily need him to start work until he has the data on from the census, and that doesn't come out until September.
Yeah, so the immediate, that language there, immediate enter into a contract, we couldn't immediately enter into it until we have that budget. I don't want to go against the law.
Yep.
So
It'd be more as soon as possible on there, but definitely I could reach out. Commissioner Gray has just showed me his contact information on Exhibit A, and so I can reach out to him and just make sure that he's aware that we are going to contract for his services, and that there will be a draft of the legal contract that we'll send to him, start working through the process that we would typically do with any normal vendor. Make sure the budget's there, and then
But the,
do a contract at the same time.
resolution be amended?
Yeah, we'll just have to amend that
Amend
language.
the resolution and say we will, due to the offered, low offer, unless somebody wants to do it for $499, $4,999.
And that's the problem. We haven't solicited to see if anybody would be willing to do that, or pro bono. So, yeah, I don't know if anybody out there is pro bono, but it will cost.
Even then, pro bono, the knowledge that this individual has in terms of how to,
Carve that.
that would be the interest also.
Yeah, absolutely. And I could reach out to him so he knows that we're definitely interested. But there's just some
That would
government hurdles we've got
lock
to get through.
in terms of sole source to me.
Because of his experience in the
Right.
interests. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So your recommendation is
Just to modify, I can't immediately enter into a contract with him,
yeah.
but I can, one of the things you guys have to approve the contract before I can enter that contract. He has to approve the contract as well. So it's more begin negotiation of the contract. We can do that and then bring that back as the commission to modify our budget
So this
so that the money's there.
resolution would be modified.
Just item number 1 on there. And then to Commissioner Adams' point, the start date and everything, we can place that in the contract terms as well so that he knows officially when he can start charging us for the $125 an hour. That way, and it kind of, I can understand that if we were to hire him immediately, you're paying him for any service rendered, but yet the census hasn't come out.
There's two things playing in my head. One is the resolution. The The contract is the other,
It is, yep, that's gotta come back before you.
yeah,
Mhm.
the hiring, that would include the hiring,
Yeah.
not,
Not the resolution. The resolution is more to the county administrator to begin negotiations of the contract.
sort of like the door to the house.
Correct.
And then the contract would be to let you in and look around, sit on the sofa and so forth.
Yes. The bank lets you see the mortgage.
Yeah.
Yep. But you haven't signed on the dotted line yet. So we need to make sure that he's okay with our
Do we go
contract
with
in
the
there.
resolution today, is it ready?
You can just make those modifications in there verbally.
You can
That's fine.
recommend
Yeah.
an amendment to the resolution and modify it.
Yes, you can.
So there would be, take care of Mr. Adams' concern.
Yeah. Yep. We'll capture that in the contract. One of the questions that I have also is on, is there the appetite to form the committee throughout the county of people that you select, you know, as a commission, who you feel would be best setting on and assisting Mr. Cooper through that process? And so a lot of counties have already done this where they're forming committees on their own, selecting individuals from specific towns and cities within their areas. Does that make sense to do that as well?
I think that question you raised would be addressed at the contact.
Mr. Cooper?
Yeah.
But you can also request that to just be added in his scope of work, and it's a term that
If
he would
necessary.
accept or not.
That would be his recommendation,
Okay. But would that be your recommendation to do it that way?
based on what his observation,
Okay.
previous work. If that's the kind of committee that he works with,
Okay. Do you know if he proposed the scope of work to be added into a contract, or is it just he's good at this and
yeah,
here's my resume, hire me? Okay. We can work on that. And so this, I can, as I reach out to him, I can just kind of explore some of the opportunities, some of our thoughts as county staff of how best to approach this, especially the reason why I suggest and recommend a committee is I think it would be good to have that transparent, open process with our cities and towns and chapters as well through this whole process, so that we can blame everybody through the process. Everybody gets a hand at the table. Everybody can sit there and go through this process, whether the committee's all in agreement or not. We still afforded everybody the opportunity to have a say. And so I think it'll avoid potential problems in the future. And so that's something certainly we can work on with the contract, the scope of work for that.
so with the, motion is sitting, and, there's an offer that was made and requested that a certain language be inserted into the resolution, describing when the payments will be made, relating to the work, the scope, not the scope of work, but the actual work begins. So that's been accepted. Do you still second the motion with that? No?
And then to modify it, or that language, instead of immediately enter into a contract, we immediately begin negotiations on that contract.
Yeah, 2:30.
Right, so to immediately begin the negotiations of the contract with Mr. Cooper. Are you fine with that language?
Just extend the time if possible to 3 o'clock. I don't
Oh, they're already going to be in the meeting. We're trying to
Well,
negotiate with,
It doesn't
you
hurt
know.
to ask. That way.
You okay with that?
Yeah, if, Mr. Adam does second the motion, then I will.
I'm not going to second the motion. I don't support the whole concept. I'm not going to vote for, to hire this guy. So if you guys want to do it, then you need to do it, but I'm not going to be part of it.
Okay. No other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Nay?
No.
So there's 2 in favor, 1 opposed.
Okay. Continuing on, number 7, consideration and approval of Monticello Library and the Sorensen Legacy Foundation grant. We have Michaela, our Assistant Library Director in Monticello Branch Library. She is online. Michaela, how are you?
Good. Is my microphone working all right?
You are, yep.
Okay, great. Okay, we'd applied for the Sorensen Legacy Foundation grant and a couple months ago, and they got back to us and they've offered us $20,000 to help complete our co-working space, the furnishings and like the printer and a lot of the crucial things that we still needed to secure. And I think between this and the American Express one that you guys ratified previously, I think we'll be able to do everything we need to get this up and running. So it's pretty exciting that they offered us and yeah, so we just need approval for it so we can submit that and get the check and get those supplies in. So does anybody have any questions?
Did you guys understand that?
Nope. I think
All right, you kind of break it up there.
you're
Okay, so
far
Oh,
behind
sorry.
the Speaker.
So basically, so with just as kind of a reminder on here, last year we started the San Juan County Monticello Library co-working remodel downstairs in the Monticello branch. That project continues to go forward. We had enough money in a grant to cover a majority of the construction and remodel costs, but what we didn't have is enough funds to furnish it. And so this grant, we reached out to the Sorensen Legacy Foundation, working with Southeastern Utah Association of Governments. They assisted us as well through this process. Michaela has been awesome to spearhead this grant and do all pretty much the legwork for it. In the application, we applied for that grant and received $20,000 to assist us in that. And so they did award us that grant money, and this contract is the signature for that grant funds. Did that sum it up, Michaela? Do you have anything else to add on there?
Yes, that was perfect. Thanks, Mac.
No problem.
I'll make a motion to approve the request for the library grant.
Second.
Okay. Any further question or comment? Nada?
Aye.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? 3 in favor? 0 opposed? Motion passed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michaela. Okay, the next one, we are on item number 8, consideration and approval of contract between Utah Department of Health and San Juan County for the 2022 through 2025 General Grant Child Health Evaluation and Care. This is a new contract for the county. We have Mike Moulton, who is our interim public health officer, here to give the presentation on this contract.
Mr. Moley.
Thank you, Mac. Am I coming through all right?
Yeah, we can.
All right, thanks. Commissioners, this is a grant that is actually a continuation of something that we've been doing in the past. So the renewal is just to extend this Utah Child Health Evaluation and Care Program with a funding amount of $53,380 to be reimbursed for services provided, up to that amount over a 4-year term. So we can submit for reimbursement up to $13,345 each year for this contract. If you'd like to know more about the contract, it's a health promotion and outreach case management program under which our staff provides or facilitates access to and encourages comprehensive preventative health screening for Utah children enrolled in Medicaid, or more so our county children that are enrolled in Medicaid, and to help identify potential health problems and or conditions where we can get them the care they need. And so my recommendation to the board is to make a motion approving the agreement or the contract.
Question? Mr. Adams.
This is a 4-year contract, 13,000 plus each year. Will this require your agency to hire any more employees, or can you do this with the staff that you've got?
We won't need to hire any additional staff. This is something that can be done with what we've got.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Sounds good.
I'll make a motion to approve the contract.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. 3 in favor, 0 opposed. Next.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on your agenda, item 9, consideration and approval of amendment number 3 to the independent contractor agreement between San Juan County, Utah, and Jerry Mcneely. On here, this would be amendment number 3 to his contract. Previous amendments took place so the contract was original in 2009. Then amendments taking place in 2011 and then 2014. So it was time for us to review that. In here, I do have an amendment for your approval, if that's what you choose to do. So when you look at the fiscal impact for this contract, relatively minor in relation to staffing costs. Mr. Mcneely, through this contracted vendor approach, we pay him $1,200 a month plus cell phone costs. His cell phone typically is around $40, $48, $50 a month. And so with just the monthly cost of that $1,200 a month, a year you're looking at $14,400, and so it'd be close to $15,000 throughout the year, with including cell phone. There was some public comments regarding email. The county doesn't provide him any of that. We do provide him with a cell phone. We do not provide him with a computer so that he could email us on there, but it's optional with him. Some of the services Jerry performs and kind of what he falls under. He's officially under the direction of San Juan County Planner to act as assistant planning liaison, as well as other duties requested by the county for northern San Juan County. So he's kind of that Spanish Valley area representative for staff. Staff use him not only with the county commissioners as he's come in and reported in the past of what's going on in Spanish Valley and kind of given that update. He does assist staff in providing assistance with the roads, communication with the public in the area, information regarding signage, kind of atmospherics of what's going on in Spanish Valley or that area, flood and weather conditions. He's the county representation in key leader meetings in the area, which essentially is he meets with the BLM, Forest Service, and SITLA in that area and just kind of represents the county. If there are things that those entities are doing, he will report that back in, or vice versa. If there's things that the county is doing in the area, then we communicate that through him in those meetings. He was key representation in the Special Service District Water and Sewer Project. He was a lot of the go-between with the public and the Special Service District, especially where we did not have staff there 24/7. If there was an issue, they would contact Jerry. He continues to kind of provide that assistance, guidance, and direction to project proposals in the area. And as a community representative to the public when needed, he's kind of announced in the past, or if the public were, if they did want to meet with them, that he is at the Buckles and Spurs, right? Is that, sorry, I can't remember the name all of a sudden of that restaurant there. Branding Iron. So he's at the Branding Iron. Good place to eat, by the way. But he usually will be there like on Wednesday afternoon about 1 o'clock. If the public need to see him, they're more than welcome to come by. Typically, there will be several San Juan County residents that will come in and see him and visit him during that time to get updates, what San Juan County is doing, kind of the next steps in our processes, or is just kind of a communication. If they have issues and concerns, then he will reach out to our county staff, our planning department, building permits for the building inspection, or kind of our road department through those processes, so that he continues to be able to communicate in what the residents there stand in need for the bulk of it. Other than that, that's kind of an explanation of where we're at. On here, I do have 2 recommended motions. You'd make a motion to approve the amendment continuing the contract until 2022 based on available funding. So it doesn't extend beyond that. It would be an annual contract that will continue to go forward if there's the available funds. The other one is to make a motion for the county administrator to provide a termination letter providing a 30-day written notice in accordance with the agreement. The sections therein in that agreement mentioned that if we were to terminate, we would have to give him that 30 days written notice, which is in paragraph 1.01 of that contract. Any questions for me?
Okay, call for the question. I need a motion.
I'd like to make a motion.
Motion?
Make a motion to approve the amended continuing the contract until the end of 2022 based on available funding. He's already completed half of a year this year if we give him a 30-day notice, so I don't think that the money is significant enough to be a concern. So that's my motion.
The motion made by Mr. Adams to, what is it, amend,
Continue
continue the contract?
contract, yep, until the 2022.
Fiscal year 2022.
No, that'd be just another 6 months. Right,
Is there a second?
just till the end of the year.
a second? It's gone. I guess the option is to, unless somebody motions, to not extend. There's another option. I guess it's failed.
Should I make a motion to adjourn?
If that's the last item.
So with that, there's no motion. So basically what he would do is he would remain employed by the county. If we don't direct me to terminate, then he continues forward until either basically you're not funding the contract anymore. And so the amendment wouldn't go forward. He would still stay in place
It's
until
held up to,
you
End of the year.
told me not to, yeah.
to
Well,
the
and
end
the-
of the year, then consideration will be made.
Yep.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Next.
So that's it, okay?
Didn't go.
Okay.
Nobody would chop the wood.
So he'll be out there chopping wood still. Okay.
Nobody chopped the wood to put it in the furnace and make the engine run.
Okay. There is, yeah, I don't know how to leave off on that one. I know, and it's been expressed in the past where, you know, Jerry is that planning assistant liaison for the northern portion. I can certainly look at opportunities to explore for the southern portion of the county what we need to do about better communication and, you know, the possibility of a liaison. It's see what that means, and then bring that forward next budget season so that we can get some assistance on the southern portion of the county, kind of balance everybody out. Does that make sense? Okay.
Vote means yes.
Okay. So the next item on the agenda, item number 10, is our public hearing. We would have to enter into a motion to enter into a public hearing.
Make a motion, we enter into a public hearing to approve the scope of work and funding request for the public safety remodeling and expansion project.
Okay, motion, second. To go into public hearing.
And we need lots of public comment.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. 3 in favor, 0 opposed.
Okay.
We are now in the public hearing.
Okay, let me explain it before we open it up to public comments on here. So back in 2009, we had approached the CIB in assisting the county and funding construction drawings in anticipation of potential jail expansion. At that time, we had targeted around 300 new inmate beds. As we reached out, there wasn't a lot of support. Mainly what I'm taking that to mean is really the state in kind of the rates that they provide for state inmates. There wasn't a lot of opportunity or support for us to expand that, or a commitment that they would increase their revenue to the county. Since that point in time, the county began different programs, hosting treatment programs here that I think there's only one other county in the state provides similar programs that we offer here in the
Kane?
county. Yeah, I don't know if it's Kane or if it's Purgatory. San Pete. All right. Okay. And so these, because it's such a specialized program, the state has basically reached back out to us in those negotiations and made us aware that, hey, if we had more beds, they can get more participation from the inmates to enter into this type of a program, then they would also fund that support. And so since that time, and if you remember last year, we had the CARES Act funds that we allocated some of those funds and contracted with the AJC architects to go through and look at the 2009 plans. So if you think it's 2021, we're dealing with 2009 building code and construction drawings that used the code back then. A lot of things were out of date, but we used that architectural firm to go through, look at the drawings, and then create a feasibility study, determine what kind of the newer construction cost would be. And so they reached out with kind of their contacts and contracted with CCC, which is the name of the firm that does construction estimates throughout the state. They provided the construction estimates for this project, of which we've taken and put that, let's see, the total cost on here for construction is estimated at $17,984,704. So with that, now that we know kind of a current construction cost, now remember that construction costs are adjusting daily now, so those construction costs may be a little bit out of whack, but there is some contingency within that. So now that we have an updated cost, we kind of have an updated plan to approach the CIB board for funding. Would like to do so, but one of the processes is that we go through and kind of explain to the public why we're taking on this project. So to go over the scope of work with the public so that they understand why it is we're approaching a different funding source for these funds, but also to demonstrate that the county has the means to pay for it, whether it's through an increase in taxes or another revenue source. And so some of the things when we look at the building itself, due to the growth and the need of the programs, we know that if we increase the bed capacity, we'll be able to get the state or the feds to pay for it. And so with that in mind, we know that we can go through and redesign and reconfigure the space in there, make it a little bit more operable to the county, a little bit more safe to our correction officers, update the systems that are failing. So imagine a 1987 construction build. A lot of the services and equipment in that building haven't been upgraded since. It's kind of a Band-Aid approach to it if we haven't already replaced it, but a majority of the things in there are old and past their life expectancy, especially on the mechanical side of it. In the winter, it's common for the air to be stagnant with condensation on the walls and the windows in the building. The fire alarms and the smoke detection system is outdated and needs to be upgraded. You have an elevator that continues to break down in that building. There's been times where correction officers or staff have been stuck in the elevator and had to call out for somebody to come and get them out of the elevator. We're constantly working on that to try to keep it operational. to meet our ADA requirements. Absolutely. The recovery side of it, certainly that. We also have an issue, which is kind of one of those things that shouldn't be, is our backup generating power system powers the whole entire building plus all of the equipment there. Legally, that should be on a separate system so that you're able to keep people healthy and happy and comfortable in that environment and not have to worry about the elevator being on that same system. So if the elevator goes out, the emergency backup power goes out, so does all of the standard of living in the facilities for our inmates, which we're required to keep at certain temperatures as far as heating and cooling. So that one's a pretty big concern that jumped out as we did the feasibility study. Operational wise, San Juan County, like I'd mentioned, we're only two of the jails that house inmates through a long-term care provider and sex offender therapy program for state inmates. So some of the numbers that I provided in the staff report, a little bit off. I've got updated numbers that we worked through with this. All in all, we're looking to take our current 76-bed capacity with the state up to 110 beds. With 110 beds, that obviously is going to afford us a lot more revenue with it. And so we anticipate if we're able to get 64 state inmates in this system, and that's just state inmates that are down here, excluding the program, we receive about $53.93 per inmate for that. So for 64 beds, that would bring us in a total of $1,259,804.80 just in revenue. And then with the other 32 beds, if they're in the program itself for pretreatment, we get a higher rate for that because they're in the pretreatment program. That gives us $67.78 for each inmate that's in that program. That would bring in around $791,000, $791,670. And so you're looking at overall revenue expectation of just over $2,051,000. And so when I looked at plugging in the numbers, if we were to go and as we approach the CIB, there's two different approaches typically that they fund. They're either going to fund grants, they're going to fund a loan. Fortunately, we have an ally that sits on their board that can help champion with it, but biased or non-biased, we're hoping it would be nice to get a grant. I've also seen CIB coming out of CIB that they will do a split, a grant combination loan, but it's hard to say. I've seen, I've attended several CIB meetings and I've heard some of the concerns that they have as we see the mineral extraction, the oil and lease revenue funds continue to deteriorate, so does their money. And we've mentioned this in the past as well as, as we look out for the best interest here in San Juan County, if we're against mining, if we're against mineral extraction, well, that hurts us and our revenue. It also hurts CIB. And CIB, they're also concerned about that lack of revenue source. What we're seeing a lot of is more loans than anything. And so just in anticipation of that, kind of structured everything in this discussion, in this presentation of them giving us a loan. We really don't know the rate that they will give us. I've seen varying rates on their lease revenue bonds that they would apply. And so typically during the CIB board, when you're approved, that's when they will announce what rate you're also set at. So I just used just a standard 3% rate in here. And so with the 3% rate at that $17,984,000, we were looking at an annual payment close to $920,000. So $920,000, that's a huge payment on there, respectively. But also just remember that we're anticipating with the additional bed capacity and increase in that capacity in state revenue alone for those inmates, we were over $2 million. And so with that projected revenue, we're well within our means of continuing to be self-sustainable. That's one of the things, and we do have John Young here that kind of set up the programming and helped us through that feasibility study with AJC. One of the things that he had mentioned in the programming is that the county has been able to be probably one of the most, as far as jails, self-sustainable or close to 100% self-sustainable, meaning that they're able to bring in enough revenue generated through the services that they offer to keep things afloat. They receive smaller increments of general fund than some other counties throughout the state. And so that's a good thing. With those increase in bed counts, we will be able to continue in that operation and in that manner. One of the things that I failed to mention in here is we also have a resource and have been in negotiations with the federal government to house federal inmates here that are closer to home. So instead of housing them in a penitentiary or jail in Denver, they would be housed here in San Juan County where they'd be closer to home. And anytime you're closer to home, you're closer to family, closer to friends that can come in and see you. And so that inmate care is a lot better by having it local. And so we are able to also negotiate and contract with the feds for beds. Typically, I think what we're looking at on there is around 5 beds total. And they would, in their contract, they're around $65 a day, so a little less than kind of our state paid treatment program, but pretty close to that. And so we would be bringing in around $119,000 for federal beds, just those 5. We could also increase those beds to 10 and kind of double that amount as well. And so one of the things also on here that I haven't mentioned yet is a portion of the remodel, and in here you kind of see the conceptual idea, the conceptual drawings from AJC, where instead of the old plan, where the old plan anticipated that the jail, we would expand it out kind of on a horizontal platform where we would just keep on adding to the building. Working with AJC and knowing the construction of the build that's there, it made sense to explore going vertical, especially on a staffing side of it, where we don't necessarily have to build a brick building, a brick bunker for the correction aspect of it, but we can put kind of the administrative services up on top and do a stick build up on top of the current building, which will be a lot more affordable instead of just going horizontal in construction. But also on the other side of the building, you have the courts. The courts also lease a portion of that building to us. In this, it also anticipates a remodel of their space, making the courtroom area a lot safer, especially when you look at egress on an active shooter situation. Right now, active shooter goes in. There's only one way in, one way out, similar to this building here in this room. With the court system, we're actually making it a lot safer environment for staff, as well as the judge that's in there, in anticipation that the state courts would also increase their lease rate with us. They provide right now about $8.50 a square foot for a total of $27,251 a year. And so there's the potential for that revenue also to increase to help pay for the addition as well. So multiple revenue sources at the state, federal, and the state court aspect of it that we feel comfortable enough that we don't have to raise taxes, that we can do it within our own systems through the programs that we continue to offer. I'd seen a couple of months ago where in anticipation of the new state correction facility coming online, the state spent millions and millions of dollars in that system. But the report also highlighted the fact that they're already at capacity and the building isn't built, and so pretty stressful. Other than that, Commission, that it gives you the lay of the land. That's our scope of work for the building. Beat it. Sorry. We're in a public hearing. We got a public hearing first. So I had to, in order to apply, I had to go through all of that. Sorry. So it was long. But yeah, and if not, the CIB board will send me back to you to make sure that I explain it thoroughly to the public. And so that's why there was that. I wish. It's a requirement. That is a requirement. It's a requirement that it be in the minutes. And so therefore it's duly done. So other than that, we can now open it up to public comments to see if anybody on the public.
Anybody want to comment on public safety facility renovation and addition?
Please do. We got a
Harry.
comment.
Make a
Harry
comment.
Wyatt, it's right here.
Ferguson, you need to comment.
He pretty much covered everything.
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead, make a public comment. Good idea.
Well, you pretty much covered everything in your statement, so. Yeah.
Mac, I can make a public comment.
Can you hear me? There's going to be 2 courtrooms in this new facility. So we're going to double the size of the state court, and that'll double the amount of money we get from the state for the court system.
I guess if they lease, I think the Justice Court could use one of the courtrooms as well. Kind of have a place. Was that question to me?
You're answering it.
Yeah. I don't know how much the state would pay. Of course, you meant their square footage, so they only use 1 court at a time generally, but so I don't know how much, would work out with the contract with the state courts. But 2 courts would be needed to help with our justice court. Sometimes they meet just in the little office there, and this would give them more of a court room as well for a more official meeting.
Looks to me like there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's at least 4 judge chambers.
I'm trying to look up there and see that.
So there is an increase in the square footage on here.
Are we going to take care of needed improvements in the old building, like the roof and the HVAC or whatever we have trouble with? John, what are we having trouble with? The elevator? Are we going to still leave that as a search and rescue facility? Come up to the mic.
Yeah, so we will address those issues with the roof, and the heating and cooling. A lot of those.
We went over there. There was running water coming down one wall, right?
Condensation.
Yeah, it's been an issue, and in those areas in the current facility, we'll be doing some. We'll be taking the roof off in some of those areas, expanding it higher, and so those things will be addressed automatically.
When you look at the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, all of that will have to be upgraded and brought up to code, and especially when we apply some of the state efficiency standards to this building, we will have to automatically. Currently, you're in a situation where as we bring in inmates and you have no real receiving area, and as we met over there that last time, you kind of seen we went to the center of the building. If you were to bring somebody in with COVID, you're automatically exposing both the male and female population, where there's no segregation between those two, nor is there a nursing facility that can kind of separate anybody that's sick, any female that's pregnant, anybody that's coming in detoxing on drugs. There's really not that separate medical facility, so that also addresses that and brings in the airflow and the needed filtration systems that will help with that stagnant
Use
air.
the original contractor
No.
on this?
I initially
No.
started out meeting with them. I mean, that's kind of how I approached the project from the beginning. I approached the original architects and said, I think we have some issues we need to address, and went back to them and we started meeting, but we started at the end, we met with
AJC, separate. So I took it out of a different, so for me, the project, what we would do is a general contractor, contract management style of building where you bring in the contract, you put it out to bid. We have to bid it out to multiple contractors just because of the size of the project. So we would first hire an architectural firm to do the architectural and help us through the process, but then go out, solicit a contractor to do the general contractor and construction management, marry the two together, and then have the contractor and the architect work with the final design. So if you look on this, it's really kind of schematic. It's a sketch of where we're at right now and that expectation. The contractor and the architect will work together as a team to go through and finalize the construction drawings. Once they finalize, you're automatically into construction with that contractor. You don't go out to bid for other services, but they help you through the process to save money. Are there economies of scale? When you look at the courtrooms, do you tighten the courtrooms or do you make them bigger based off of the construction, the contractor's viewpoint of what he can build compared to what the architect can design? And so you marry those two together. I've maintained constant contact with the previous contractor who would like an opportunity when it comes available to bid on that process. So they're fully aware of kind of where we're taking things. They've asked if we need their assistance as we approach the CIB. More than likely, we would just use AJC with the application side of it and then hold off until a later date to bring contractors in. But it would be cheaper.
I think you can expect the CIB to probably be about 1% of your loan. They have a affordability tool. Tell you how much loan you can afford based on your income, how much grant they can offer. So that's been what's happened in the past year, and I don't see things changing. So whatever your loan is, and depending on the affordability, you might be lucky enough to get
We'll definitely approach it either
So-
way. So we'd be hopeful. I just know that some of the bonds that we do have are a little bit more. So I stuck it at 3 just to high five this guy. Must have been when you weren't there that day or something.
you get 50-50.
Okay, so hopefully we can get.
So, Mac, I do have a comment to add to that.
Okay, hopefully. Alex, did you have any comments on there?
I did. There are a couple things that I just wanted to point out. In the year 2020, when we went to having to do everything remotely and doing everything through technology, we found out how incredibly deficient our building was to handle all of the new technology. And I think John and the sheriff should be really commended for getting it put together as quickly as they could to make our building work. But a lot of those changes from 2020, the indication, at least from the courts, is that they're going to keep a lot of those technology changes. And this building, our patchwork has worked for us, but it's not a long-term solution. And this does create that opportunity to provide that technological update that we need to match those changes. We have a much better idea of what those changes are going to be because they're kind of letting us know what's going to be permanent and what's not going to be permanent. And where the southern part of the county doesn't have broad internet access, this building kind of becomes the technology hub for anybody on the south end of the county. We bring them in, we try to get laptops, but right now we kind of have to cram everybody into a big public space. And this looks like a good solution to be able to provide some technological solutions for the southern end of the county while we wait for all that internet line to finally get put in over the next 10 years. The only thing I was looking at in those courtrooms is it looks like I'm not seeing on there that a jury room has been designated. So it looks like one would probably double as the.
There's a jury room and a law library on the across from the new courtroom.
Is that where they've doubled that up? Is on the law library?
I think so. But you got big courtrooms.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I can't tell the scale on that piece of paper. I mean, our current courtroom has a lot of big empty space in it that's probably not used very well. So I bet they're probably just trying to make it more efficient. They might just be cutting the existing one into two.
So like I say, this is schematic of what we can do and try to get the numbers in there with the expansion to make everything work with the holding cells so that inmates coming in, they're out of their corrections facility, they're in here waiting for court, gives them a place.
Well, one of those might be for the juvenile court. You don't need access to the detention facility for the juvenile court because we don't bring them in through that facility. So the idea there probably is for a separate juvenile courtroom. The other thing to not that I by virtue of my employment I get to see the side of society that I don't want to see a lot, like John gets to see it. But what I can tell you is that as the state's population goes up, we just get busier and busier. So it might be a little bit future looking as well.
So those holding facilities, those 3 holding rooms, you got somebody you're holding there before you take them down to Tammy?
You're talking the ones next to the courtroom? Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, they...
Treatment center right there for Tammy. Yeah. Right there.
For the receiving center. Get rid of that janitor's closet.
All right, any other public comment? Not seeing.
In essence, what it boiled down to for me, commissioners, is that we've got an aging building that has a lot of issues that need addressed. And so I tried to figure out a way to bring in additional revenue to pay for that so that it wasn't just coming out of our pocket.
I think you're a well-known facility and having treatment programs for certain kind of offenders. I don't think you'd have trouble getting more state prisoners.
No, the resolution's already in place to get that 110 inmates. I just have to have the beds.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks, John. Appreciate that. It's good work. All right.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing, come out of public hearing.
Second. Motion, second by Mr. Adams, motion, Mayor Board second. No comments? All those in favor, accent the
Aye.
public hearing? Aye. 3 ayes. Opposed, nay. 0.
Okay, the next item, we need to enter into a public hearing for consideration and approval of the application, scope of work, and funding request to the Permanent Community Impact Fund Board for $38,700 grant. We're hoping for
I'll
the
make a motion that we go into public hearing to approval of scope of work and funding request to the Community Impact Board for $38,700 grant for the Spanish Valley Flood Management study.
Second. Motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. 3 ayes and 0 opposed.
Let's explain this one real fast. So this one here, we're requesting $38,700 in a grant through the CIB. CIB kind of has a different process for studies and projects that are under 50,000, and so we're going to take it through that system more at a staff level, hoping that we can get approved for a grant with that. We have been working with SITLA. SITLA had performed a flood plain study and water management study for a majority of their property here in Spanish Valley. This is kind of a continuation with that, and SITLA has been willing to partner with us in this project. And so the total costs of the study are estimated to be $77,400, of which SITLA's committed to help provide half of that study. Because SITLA has gone through this process in the past, we'll be using their contract services through their processes to contract with Hanson, Allen, and Luce. They had performed a majority of what they did for SITLA already, and so we'll be adding on to some of the services that they've already provided, but it'll complete a bigger picture for San Juan County. And especially as we experience more development in Spanish Valley, we're running into a problem where we need to make sure that we have the proper drainage, the proper stormwater retention, as well as where we can mitigate a potential 100-year storm that comes out of the Pat Creek area on down through this area. And so this study will take a look at the whole entire area going all the way to the border, but it'll also include communication with Grand County and Moab. We want to make sure that we're not dumping all of the Pat Creek water into their area. One of the big emphasis that you'll see us take in this project is flood water retention. Are there areas where we can retain the water in systems so that we can replenish the aquifer that's right below us that provides the water? Now, as people continue to be concerned about that aquifer, the ability to maintain it in floodwater retention areas will actually assist us in replenishment of that system, trying to avoid any evaporative effect with that area or having the water rush by us into Grand County, and they benefit from that. So anticipation of looking at that whole entire area, beginning at Pat Creek, coming on down through the alluvial fan system into that whole entire valley, and making it a little bit more prudent. And it hopefully in the end will give us, and what the scope of work allows for is the engineers, as they work through us, to propose ways that we can mitigate floods, that we can retain the water, create systems. They'll provide us costs to get those services. And this is important, especially as we look at the America Recovery Act funds. The America Recovery Act funds don't expire until 2024. So the fact that if we can get this study finished and completed in time, that we can apply for some of the infrastructure funds that are available there, then we can start implementing the measures so that we can help that whole entire area avoid any potential issues. One of the things that we looked at is the water systems that are there right now. There's concerns with the earthen dam that is right there that kind of keeps the lake back. But if you look beyond that earthen dam, you see all the residents that have been developed in that area. If there were ever to be an earthquake, what happens with that dam? Where's that water flow? And so it looks at all of the potential hazards throughout that area. And so that's kind of an overview of the flood study that we're presenting to the CIB for their funds. When it comes to revenue, we're hoping to and anticipating that we can get this in a grant. There's really no revenue. If they do require a loan, we would probably seek other funding sources for this, maybe. I don't know.
You can get, I believe, Mac, you have to provide matching money. I think
We've got
you
Sitla
can get
partnership.
50/50. If you get, whatever you get from Sitla, you can get a matching grant from CIB.
See, and that's what we're hoping is the CIB will match us on
And
our
I
half.
think if you're under 100,000, the staff can kind of approve that. It doesn't even have to go to the board.
Okay, that's what we're hoping.
Yeah, that's the one, John. That's the one. Yep.
That is what we're hoping right there. So that, Commissioner, is my presentation for the public hearing.
Any public comment?
Marlene, now's your time to shine.
I know she's been on all along. Liz is there. Liz can speak to this. She kind of lives.
Oops. What comment, what would I be commenting on right now?
Comment on the, we're in public hearing to ask for money from CIB, matching money to create a Spanish Valley flood management study. But we need public comment in this public hearing to present to CIB.
I would definitely be approve of that because it is a concern, the flood. And if they'll help us out, that would be wonderful. And I live on Sunny Acres, Marlene Huckabee.
Thank you, Marlene.
Is that what you wanted?
That's exactly what we needed.
Perfect.
Oh, okay.
Good job.
Okay. I can add if you want.
Dressed it well. Yeah,
Where's Monette?
Okay.
I want Monette to
Okay.
Mac, Liz,
Liz
Oh,
is there.
sorry.
Liz. Hey, take it away, Liz.
I just wanted to comment that I think there's been some comments up in northern Salmon County about asking Sitla to cost share some of this expense.
This water eventually goes into Grand County and will affect Grand County and Webb City, but the study will take into consideration the whole area, not only the Spanish.
Right, but in addition to the asking CIB for some cost share, I think the comments I've heard is the county asking Sitla as well.
Yes, they're a partner with us in this
Yeah.
project.
Okay, thanks.
Should be a 50/50 deal, actually, I think.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liz.
Anyone?
I'll make a motion, we come out of public hearing.
Second. Motion made by Mr. Adams to exit the public hearing, second by Mr. Maryboy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes, 0 opposing.
Consideration.
Commission report.
No, so we got to make a motion, consideration of approval of the application scope of work and funding requests for that $38,700 grant.
Second. came out of public hearing, now we have to approve the.
Oh,
The
okay.
item.
You made the motion, I second.
Yep.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. 3 ayes, 0 opposed. Motion carries.
Don't leave, you gotta make the. You can leave.
You better go, yeah. NRF is.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
See, we can skip commission reports if you want.
What time is it?
It's 2:28.
It's tomorrow.
The screen doesn't tell you what time it is.
Clock does.
It's kind of, it should be on this side.
Down,
Okay.
no, down,
Once you move it over here,
Down-
so you see it.
down on the right hand, it does on the monitor.
Hey, you've been drinking my water?
Right. COVID buddies. Okay, thank you guys.
It's Mormon coffee.
There's several things that's going to be happening. On the 28th, I plan to meet with Governor Cox. And if two of the commissioners would join me, I would appreciate that. It's more of an introduction to some of the projects here in the county and on the reservation.
Where are you meeting with him?
Phil and I will be walking into his office.
Into his office?
Yep. 'Cause
Ooh.
you know that I don't have any friends up in
You
the
have to wear a
legislature.
mask?
I'm gonna be wearing a mask, and he probably won't, but that's okay.
Well, I'm not saying I won't. I'm just asking.
I think you should.
28th, that's a Friday.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Willie, if he can make it, that would be good. I would appreciate if Matt could maybe get us some room. Little America. And I will be on standby for the meeting on the road with the Resources Committee.
Yeah.
We're still waiting on that.
NDOT.
And once that happens, NDOT and BIA will be in present, and I believe that the president's office is going to be there as well.
Okay.
And since Ricky Nez is running the meeting, legislative office is going to be available as well.
Okay.
So those are coming up. We don't know the date yet.
A month
And-
from now.
Yeah. And we have another meeting on the Farmers Development Association on the Utah Water Settlement Agreement. The engineers are going to be coming out again. We've been down to Navajo Mountain, but one area we haven't been yet is Monument Valley and El Chita, and also one is in the Creek area. And I believe that Keystone Front is on the list as well.
What time is that meeting with the governor? Try to put it on the calendar.
Bill will probably let us know.
Okay, but you don't know yet. Huh?
No, not yet, but the
Okay.
date is, he
Okay,
asked me for a date.
I've got the date.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if that date will work for you guys.
Yeah, it works for me.
I'll make it work.
All right, the 28th. That's the date.
Me? That's the guy
And
upstairs.
other than that, I'll be around, and I'm getting ready to run to Blinding to make a call into the NRF. So that's where I'm headed to, and a lot of things are happening, and maybe do a thorough report next commission meeting. So thank you very much. Adios. Vaya con Dios. Acona.
You're gonna leave before Willie makes his report?
He doesn't want me to listen to the report.
28th is open.
Okay.
preparation meeting next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
All right.
What time?
We don't know the time yet, so.
Keep me updated.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thanks for
I don't have any report.
I went the same place you did.
Hey, no problem, Commissioner. Good to see
Okay,
you.
we voted.
Yeah, I'll take care of it.
Bye.
Adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Can't we stay long? I want to stay longer.
Yeah, Marilyn, you see what's
I haven't been here long enough. Bye.
Have a good day, Marlene.
Thanks.
She says she hasn't been here long enough. She's wanting to stay. She's ready to. She's ready to go. She's like,
What do you
she's like,
mean?
why are we giving up?
Blue is it black?
It doesn't matter.
She's like, the
They
day
were
is
way
young.
too long.
The day is young. She must have got
Yours
on
probably
late.
works better than mine.
She didn't start till 1 o'clock.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Just sign
Do
it.
I have a
Totally.
name?
Thanks, Marlene. You have a good one.
Yep, sign it right there on top of that line, and then I'll fill the rest of that out for you.
Let's see.